All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about something called cultural studies. And you've probably heard this term thrown around because honestly, it's become super influential over the last few decades.
And it's no exaggeration to say it's booming. As Megan Morris put it, it's experiencing an unprecedented international boom. It's everywhere. You see it in universities, in books. It's really shaping how we talk about media, politics, you name it. But all this popularity kind of begs a really important question.
Okay, so what is it? What exactly is cultural studies? You'd think that would be a simple question with a simple answer, right? Well, it turns out it's anything but.
Yeah, it's famously, notoriously hard to define. I mean, the people who actually practice it have called it actively and aggressively anti-disciplinary. It just refuses to be put into a neat little box. So to even get a handle on this thing, we've got to start with its most basic, fundamental idea.
And that idea is the word culture itself. See, the first step in understanding cultural studies is realizing that it took the old, traditional definition of culture and just completely flipped it on its head.
So think about the traditional view of culture. You know, what your grandparents might call culture. It's high art, classical music, great literature, the best that has been thought and said. It's kind of fancy, right? Well, cultural studies came along and said, whoa, hold on, that's way too narrow. For them, culture is, well, it's a whole way of life. It's not just the fancy elite stuff, it is literally everything that makes up our day-to-day lives.
This is the key. Thinkers like Stuart Hall defined it as this grounded, actual terrain. It's the real, tangible world we live in. We're talking about the language you're hearing right now, the clothes you're wearing, the shows you binge watch, how you buy your groceries, the memes you share, all of it. It's the very fabric of our existence.
And I just love this quote from Paul Willis. He says, culture is the very material of our daily lives, the bricks and mortar of our most commonplace understandings. It's such a great way to put it, right? It's not some floaty, abstract idea. It's the literal building blocks of our reality. But here's the thing. Cultural studies isn't just about describing this reality. Oh no, it has a much bigger, much clearer purpose in mind.
And that brings us to the why. Why does this field even exist? Because it's not just some stuffy academic exercise. Right from the get-go, cultural studies was always, and I mean always, a political project.
This is super important to get. Cultural studies is not neutral. It doesn't even pretend to be this objective, detached observer standing on the sidelines. Nope. It absolutely takes a side. It has a point of view, and its whole goal is not just to understand the world, but to actually intervene and change it.
So, let's break that down a bit. What does that actually mean? Well, for starters, it's all about analyzing power. Who has it, who doesn't, and how does that work? It specifically looks at communities that were often ignored by traditional academics. Think working class folks, marginalized groups. And from there, it digs into how our culture, all that bricks and mortar stuff, organizes our social life. And the endgame? To critique the way things are and hopefully to push for change. So, how in the world does it actually do all that?
Well, that brings us to the how, the method. If this field is so anti-disciplinary, what's in its toolkit?
The word that gets used all the time is bricolage. It's a French word, and it basically just means tinkering. You know, making do with whatever is at hand. It's about using whatever tools you can find to get the job done. It's a really practical, problem-solving kind of approach.
And this is what that toolkit looks like in practice. It's the perfect example of bricolage. See, cultural studies just borrows from, well, everywhere. It might grab textual analysis from literary studies to pick apart a movie, or it might use ethnography, where you go and live with a community to understand them, straight from anthropology. It'll even pull from things like psychoanalysis or use survey research, whatever works for the question it's trying to answer.
One of the sources we looked at calls this whole process an alchemy. And that's a great word for it. It's about mixing all these different approaches together to create something totally new, a kind of powerful knowledge that no single discipline could ever come up with on its own. And really, this brings us to the most important part of all.
So what? Why does any of this matter outside of a classroom? The answer is simple. Because cultural studies gets its hands dirty. It engages directly with the most pressing, most urgent issues we're facing today. I mean, this isn't just abstract theory for the sake of it. The entire point of this whole political project, of this alchemy of methods, is to actually make a difference in the real world. It gives us the tools to analyze and, hopefully, understand real-world crises and conflicts. Let me give you a powerful example. Think about the AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s. cultural studies was absolutely crucial for understanding what was happening. Because it wasn't just a medical problem, was it? It was a cultural one. Scholars used these tools to analyze how the media was talking about it, the language being used, how political power was shaping the whole public response, and that stuff had real life-or-death consequences.
And it's not just historical stuff. It provides the frameworks for so many of the big conversations we're having right now. You know, when we talk about how gender is more than just biology, or how race is a social construct, or how a sense of national identity gets built through stories and flags and anthems. A lot of that thinking, a lot of that language, that comes directly from the world of cultural studies.
So if there's one thing to take away, it's this. Cultural studies gives you a new lens. It's a way to see how power works through all that everyday stuff, the bricks and mortar of our lives. It's really an invitation to look at your own world, your feed, your shows, your conversations, and to ask a really simple but incredibly powerful question. What are the unseen forces shaping my daily culture?